So, Adrian Elrod, let's talk about Mike Bloomberg still playing to win. He was on 60 Minutes last night, and he's still saying he's going to push through. Does it impact Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders if he stays in the race?
Well, it's interesting to Mika, to hear Joe and Steve Kornacki talking about the scenario that the Bloomberg campaign is basically laying out, saying if we stay in the race longer, if we stay in the race on Super Tuesday, this actually helps Joe Biden and it hurts Bernie Sanders. The more people who make viability, the more candidates who are on that on the ballot on Super Tuesday who clear 15%, the Bloomberg campaign maintains that helps the moderate side. Maybe it holds Joe Biden from getting more delegates, but most importantly to them, it keeps Bernie Sanders from amassing a giant swarm of delegates. Now, the real question, of course, becomes, Mika, looking after Super Tuesday, is it effective for Mike Bloomberg to stay in this race? Does he maybe come out of Super Tuesday with more delegates than Joe Biden? We don't know yet. What we do know, to what Steve said, is that a lot of voters in California, I think over 3 million, have already voted by mail. They voted early. In a lot of other states, that's the case, too. But I've also talked to a lot of people, Mika, out there in Super Tuesday states who are waiting to vote on Election Day because they wanted to see what was going to happen in South Carolina. They were looking to the voters of South Carolina to tell them what to do, to give them guidance. So a lot of voters who might normally vote early were waiting until Election Day to see how things played out in South Carolina. So that definitely helps Joe Biden, but lots of unknowns going into Super Tuesday.
Absolutely.
A lot of unknowns, and you still have to put Bernie as the favorite. Maybe not the prohibitive favorite as he was before South Carolina, but things are still looking pretty darn good for Bernie. Jonathan Lemire, let's talk about Bloomberg. You covered him in New York, as you've covered every New York mayor since LaGuardia. Let's talk about the purpose of him running, and I know this. The reason Mike Bloomberg ran was to stop Elizabeth Warren and to stop Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren is going nowhere. Just not. People can shout whatever names they want to shout. She got 5% of the black vote. She's not going to win the nomination, and he knows that. He's now got Joe Biden in a position where Joe Biden actually can challenge Bernie Sanders. Didn't look that way when Bloomberg got in the race. So that's why he got in the race. But looks that way now. There's nobody in America that thinks that Michael Bloomberg is taking votes away from Bernie Sanders. What in the world can be his logic of staying in this race when all he's going to do is take away votes from Bernie Sanders' competitors?
Well, first, Joe, covering the Mayor Abe Beame administration was particularly challenging.
That had to be exciting.
Yeah, it was pretty thrilling stuff. The mayor here and his team, they're looking at this at a couple different levels. First of all, we saw yesterday, not just on 60 Minutes, but the $1.5 million, I believe, 3-minute ad he bought on a couple of networks, including NBC, in which he was standing in front of what looked to be an Oval Office-like room, talking about how he'd respond to the coronavirus outbreak and touting his record handling disasters in New York City, including Hurricane Sandy and the aftermath of 9/11, so other terror threats, etc. Now, those of us who covered him in New York know that record's actually a little bit spotty on stuff. The rebuilding of Hurricane Sandy in particular was very slow in parts of the city. But he's trying to present himself as the competent technocrat who can handle a crisis, and obviously contrasting that with these rather scattershot efforts we've seen from the Trump administration so far. They still believe this is where Super Tuesday has been the Bloomberg goal all along. He didn't play in the first 4 states. They've spent a lot of time and money in these states. They feel like he's going to put up an impressive showing here and can score, a number of delegates across, particularly in some of these southern states, and be viable going forward. Yes, if he crosses 15, in one ways, that helps Joe Biden because it keeps Bernie Sanders' overall delegates down. But for the Bloomberg folks, this has always been a convention play. They want no one to reach the threshold. They feel like things could come to them in Milwaukee as they point to themselves being the candidate with the most resources going forward. But it can't be overstated briefly here just how important South Carolina was for Joe Biden. It is, it is momentum. And he only has a couple of days to pull this off. And we know that he's limited resources in some of these Super Tuesday states. But just one stat, he raised $10 million this weekend That was after South Carolina. That was more than he raised in the entire month of January. He did all the Sunday, most of the Sunday shows yesterday, trying to bank on some free media, and he's trying to slingshot some momentum. And yes, you're right. He's not going to get a Clyburn endorsement in every state, so we'll see if that mitigates things. But he has a chance here. He's got momentum. He's suddenly got some money. There's a feeling around him that he has a chance.
I'll tell you what, he certainly in Virginia got a couple of key endorsements. Terry McAuliffe, Bobby Scott, other leaders that actually matter in the Democratic Party in Virginia jumped on board with him, Mika. So there are some states where, again, he's going to be competitive, will probably win, should do well across the Deep South. But it is California, and as Steve brings up, those early votes have already locked in a lot of support for Bernie Sanders. So people are going to be staying up very late on Tuesday night to see what the new shape of the Democratic field looks like. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.